Welcome to the Fast Leader Podcast, where we uncover the leadership life hacks that help you to experience breakout performance faster and rocket to success. And now, here's your host, customer and employee engagement expert and certified emotional intelligence practitioner, Jim Rimbach.
Call Center Coach develops and unites the next generation of call center leaders. Through our e-learning and community, individuals gain knowledge and skills in the 6 core competencies that is the blueprint that develops high-performing call center leaders. Successful supervisors do not just happen. So go to callcentercoach.com to learn more about enrollment and download your copy of the Supervisor Success Path ebook now. Okay, Fast Leader Legion, today I'm excited because I have somebody on the show today who really is going to give us a better understanding of that intersection between human and machine. Chris Duffey was born and raised in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Chris is the son and creative product of 2 teachers and the younger brother of a sister who is now a professor. Chris has always felt most comfortable at the intersection of human creativity and technology. Chris now spearheads Adobe's Creative Cloud strategic development partnerships across the creative enterprise space. Chris's keynotes have received over 50 million plus impressions. His sessions have been reported around the world, including Access Hollywood, Extra, OK Magazine, Hello, People, Daily Mail, and Euronews. In addition, Chris and his work has been featured by more than 100 global media outlets, including the Wall Street Journal, The Economist, Adweek, Ad Age, Cheddar, The Guardian, The Mirror, The Drum, Campaign, CMO.com, New York Post, Business. I think you can get the idea. Prior to Adobe, Chris was an award-winning executive creative director, noted speaker, author, and AI and mobile technologist. Chris has been featured by Business Insider and Yahoo as one of the industry's leaders on the top issues, challenges, and opportunities in the fast-changing world of mobile marketing. Chris has been a creative consultant with over 35 advertising agencies across the major global holding companies like WPP, IPG, Havas, Omnicom, Publicis and MDC, having worked across every major industry vertical. He's a best-selling author of Superhuman Innovation, the world's first book, and co-authored by AI about AI. Chris has spoken around the world, but he currently lives in New York City when he's not chasing the next innovation. There, he's actually chasing his 2 daughters with his wife in Central Park. Chris Duffey, are you ready to help us get over the hump?
I'm here. Let's do it. Thanks for having me. Great to be here.
I'm glad you're here. Now, I've given my Legion a little bit about you, but can you share what your current passion is so that we can get to know you even better?
Sure. I think exactly that. My current passion currently and always has been what happens when you bring and amplify human creativity with the latest and greatest technology. And I think AI, artificial intelligence, is one of, if not the biggest technologies that our generation will ever see. And I say that because it is now the electrical grid system, and every future activity, every new product is going to tap into it in some way or some fashion.
You know, when you say that, I mean, there's a lot of things that started running through my head, and one of the areas of the book is you talk about the history, you know, of AI, and the reality is it's been around since the 50s. It's just there were several roadblocks that kind of hit things along the way, but we're now trying to. I think we're now hitting certain momentums that we just couldn't have before, and a lot of it has to do with computational power.
Exactly. I think maybe around 2012, that's where we had this convergence of, we finally had computational power, we had this surplus of data, and we had some new AI models that all came together and allowed us for this kind of revolution to kind of get restarted. There's this old joke that, you know, AI is really going to take off in the next 20 years, and we've been saying that for 60 years or so. So, you know, from a super intelligence standpoint, there's 3 layers of AI, essentially. Super intelligence, and that's this notion of AI, the system, at some point will be so profoundly intelligent that we can't even comprehend it. That's pretty far off there if we can and will ever achieve that. The next layer down from that is what's called general intelligence, AGI, and what that means is the system will have equal intelligence to human capabilities. Again, very difficult thing to achieve in the sense that we are still learning new aspects of human biology, We're still learning new aspects of human intelligence, and we're still learning about emotional intelligence. So when we talk about modern day AI, by all known accounts, we're talking about narrow intelligence, or what I like to say is purpose-driven intelligence, where we can point the system towards a task and help automate that task and get the grunt work, the mundane, the repetitive tasks out of the way.
Yeah, so right now, a lot of it is augmentation. And even from what you're referring to, there's, still a whole lot of discrepancies and differences and opportunities with the different types of technologies. But I think when we start talking about the creativity aspects of it, there's something that you mentioned in the book that I'd like us to talk about. And for me, I'm focusing much about the customer experience, the employee experience, and
completely agree.
I mean, this book is just totally based on all that, because we'll talk about some of the industries that have potential impact for this. But you talk about something that for me was really interesting, and I want us to talk a little bit more about, and that is computational creativity. What is that?
Yeah, so I think there's three layers to that in terms of the highest order, and we're seeing great successes over the last 12 months or so. When brands start with a brand purpose, they identify their values, and then they stand up for those values, and that can be a really challenging thing. There's some tension there in the sense that sometimes when you stand up for your values, you have short-term loss. And you have to balance that with long-term gain. And we're seeing that in the Dream Crazy campaign with Nike. Patagonia recently took a stand. You can see that at CVS, Dick's Sporting Goods, where they all stand up for their values. And they're having long-term success because of that. So I think from a business aspect, that's the top layer. The next layer is then creating great experiences for your customer or what I call the human. And that can be both on the customer side, but also on your employee side. And now you have to create great content for all of those multitude of different touch points. And then you infuse AI, what we were just talking about, computational creativity to solve a number of those problems. So computational creativity is the ability to combine human creativity with AI to create content at scale more intelligently, distribute it more intelligently, measure it more intelligently, and then optimize it more intelligently for these great personalized experiences at scale.
Well, and even when I start thinking about that, I start thinking about the data associated with it. And, we're talking about IoT, Internet of Things, and having some type of data feed, data source, data flow, but it still requires a human to be understanding of some of this. But you talk about that human and machine data flow, and then also a data feedback loop. So give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, so now we can create, when AI is embedded into products in themselves, this is where Adobe's really focused on, where we have AI features embedded into existing and future products to help create content more intelligently, and then you can optimize it, distribute it, and then measure it, and then feed it back to the content creator faster and more efficiently, so it can resonate and be more relevant for the audience that that content is meeting in terms of a marketing aspect. I think your background is really deep in service, creating great service for companies. We see a huge influx and huge opportunity in the call centers, for example, where an AI assistant can be listening and monitoring the conversation, and it can be very suggestive and creating great efficiencies in terms of creating kind of a decision tree almost on serving up the right answers or the right kind of ways to solve the problem that the customer in that case might be having.
Yeah, that whole agent assist model is definitely where we can see some significant opportunities because of a lot of the things that you are referring to as far as data is concerned, enterprise knowledge, enterprise information. I mean, there's just we are at a point where we've well gone past how we can actually manage all this information thrown at us that we need to have support through AI and other types of maybe even business rules, just simple business rules, right? They just help me to a spot where I need to get to. that can make a significant impact. But I think one of the things that's critically important is this whole change management component, and we even do a societal, impact. So, like for example, they say that, hey, we can actually kind of like with driverless cars have, driver or fly or pilotless, airplanes. But from a society perspective, they're not going to accept that.
Yeah.
Just look at this whole, Boeing Super issue and what happened with that is the whole societal comfort with all this. So change management is internal and external. Do you think that's going to affect some of the advances that we could potentially have?
Without a doubt, I think, and we go through this with any new technology, this process of normalization. First, we have to understand it from a technical standpoint, as we just talked about, those kind of 3 layers of what AI is and is not. And when you have that understanding, AI is great at these purpose-driven tasks or skills. That's where, from a change management mindset standpoint, people quickly understand that it's not human versus machine, it's actually human plus machine. And then you can identify opportunities to infuse AI. AI is wonderful at pattern recognition. It's wonderful at doing those grunt work, that mundane, repetitive tasks to get you to a starting point faster. And so I think the first step is to identify what do humans do well, what do machines do well, and that's kind of a great starting point. One recent stat really sticks with me. It's coming out of the World Economic Forum about the future kind of jobs report for 2020, and we kind of always held 2020 up as this symbolic year of the future. Well, it's only 5 or so months away. And so that report said the 3 most coveted important skill sets for the future of jobs are all inherently human. The first one is critical thinking. The next one is complex problem solving. And then the third, of course, near and dear to my heart, is creativity. So those are all inherently human traits. But when you amplify that and combine it with artificial intelligence and technology, it just expands those abilities infinitely.
Well, and I think it's important to note when we start talking about creativity, that creativity is the basic and the requirement for innovation to occur.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of things that go along with that. And I've had to make sure that we clarify the differences between the two. So I need to have creative thinking in order for innovation to be spawned.
Exactly. I think there's somewhat of a creative bias within the business world where for many years it just hasn't been, an attribution model hasn't been able to be applied to creative problem solving, but also the creative in terms of marketing and communications. And now with kind of the ability of data, we can see that creativity, multiple perspectives within organizations are having huge impacts in terms of that relationship between creativity and innovation. Creativity is now well beyond just kind of a monologue. It's a dialogue in the marketing world, but it's also now being applied to solving real world business problems beyond just those communication aspects. So it's now being applied to helping create new products, new revenue streams. So it's quite exciting in that respect as well.
Well, and that kind of comes back full circle for us to be more channeled in our creative thinking. So we have our ability to kind of think outside of the box, as they say, and have that divergent thinking where we're thinking about all these crazy things. However, we have to flip it into convergent thinking to see how it fits into our realm with our constituents, with our customers. And so that transition, being able to do that, I think that's where AI can have some significant impacts because of all the data that could be available for that.
Exactly. Over the last few years, we've talked about and seen so many successes around this notion of collective intelligence. And what that means is it's not just one team member or even one discipline, but you get these rich, really innovative ideas when you bring in kind of multiple teams and disciplines together kind of AKA collective intelligence. But a new kind of contributor to that is artificial intelligence and, to your point, data. So now when you infuse that into the ideation, the creation, and the innovation process, that is really going to compound those aspects as well.
Well, and just like you had also mentioned too, I mean, I'm also certified in emotional intelligence, and that talking about that need is to be able to understand the human condition, to be able to do all of that with all of it. Otherwise, you're going to be creating products for nobody.
Yeah, exactly. Completely agree. I think there's this paradox where the more things seem to change, actually, they stay the same. At the end of the day, it's about the customer. It's about putting the human first and trying to solve those friction points or those needs. And we can do that kind of at scale like never before now with AI and human creativity.
Most definitely. So you also talk about, these AI models, and that you talk about 5 different AI models. If you could run through those real quick, I think that'd be helpful.
Yeah, there's 5 AI models in terms of different types of AI. I always recommend that for non-engineers, for people to take a step back and, of course, people can jump into the book and read in more detail about those. But I encourage people to think about it from a broad standpoint, more so as a conductor or a composer, in the sense that for non-engineers, non-data scientists, we are conductors where we don't necessarily have to build the tools or the instruments or even play the instruments. We just have to know how to orchestrate them to map back to solving that real world business problem or objective.
So in order for an organization to be assisted and supported, you actually created a model that is an acronym.
Yes.
Super. So tell us about Super.
Yeah, great segue, because I think this is kind of a nice mnemonic for when people are in business meetings trying to solve problems. They can easily reference the acronym of SUPER, and what that stands for is how can AI assist in creating speed at scale? How can it assist in better understanding the marketplace, your customers, your employees? How can AI create better performance efficiencies in terms of your product and kind of initiatives? There's also this element of experimentation, liken it to the early days of the internet or the mid-90s, where some of the biggest winners were the ones who just got out there and started experimenting with the technology of the time. We're calling 2019 almost the year that AI is accessible for everyone, because now there's so many great APIs where companies and employees can just tap into those and very easily customize them for specific tasks or skills. And then the last one, of course, everything has to kind of have an ROI and a result. So those are the 5 components of how AI can create these super kind of experiences by leveraging them in those ways.
Well, I think for me, when I looked at that, it's a great pathway for people to create business cases, to create focus, to create meaning, create purpose, all those things that go and feed into what you talk about later, the change management piece and the ethics piece. We talk about that for maybe the social exception, at least your organization's acceptance, your customer acceptance. I think that's a great feeding model.
Yeah.
So when I think about all of this, though, man, there's a whole lot of anxiety and inspiration that's associated with it when you need to focus. And one of the things that we use on the show in order to help us do that are quotes. Is there a quote or two that you like that you can share?
One I'd love to share with everyone is the only limitation with AI is human imagination. And what we mean by that is AI is a means to an end of sorts, in the sense that the end result is not about AI. The end result is about creating great experiences for your employees or your customers, and AI can help amplify and accelerate the creation of great experiences at scale across all those multiple touch points.
Well, and I think for me, kind of what you were also talking about, you talked about jobs. We also talked about industries, impacted. You talked about call centers, which, I reside in, employee experience, customer experience. I mean, all of these things, we're seeing some impacts now. And you talked about that year 2020 flip, but it seems to me like we may see another 60 years before we start seeing really significant impacts. Am I really, jaded?
Yeah, I think the roadmap is quite simple, right? As we talked about, have a brand purpose, create great experiences, and then leverage AIs to create those great experiences. Pretty straightforward roadmap, and then you can leverage the super framework to kind of guide you for areas of opportunity in that. From an infrastructure standpoint, I think that's where it gets quite complex in terms of de-siloing data streams, creating a data lake, making it structured so you can then underlay AI models to extract some of those aspects. So, that's complex, but it is accessible, approachable currently, and I think we've just scratched the surface. We're seeing huge opportunities, huge kind of accolades coming out of products that are embedded with AI. A recent stat just recently came out where by 2020, again, that companies that are not leveraging AI will lose $1.2 trillion to companies that are. So even though we're only scratching the surface, the upside is huge, and it's only going to get bigger and better as the years progress. Now that we have the computational power, we have these great models. We have kind of a better understanding of what AI is and is not. We've gone through that process of normalization, and we feel comfortable with it from a kind of a change management standpoint. I think it's going to really take off quickly over the next few years in terms of creating personalized experiences at scale.
Well, I think for me, having the opportunity to meet with you and the experiences that I've had, with AI and being in chatbots and agent solutions and things like that in the contact center space is that while we are at the beginning, I think organizations are going to be forced to go through transformational change faster because right now it's very delayed. A lot of the things that I think we kind of hit on here. So hopefully the supermodel will help them to accelerate, take some velocity through that. But needless to say, when we start talking about this, there's going to be humps that we have to continually get over. And I would dare to say, even though you've been an innovator in this, is that people don't see the humps that you've had to get over in order to get where you are today.
Sure.
Is there a time where you've gotten over hump that you can share with us?
One referencing the book. So I started out my career as a content creator on the agency side. So spent 20, 25 years, most recently 10 to 15 years on the digital health side, creating experiences for both physicians, patients, and caregivers. And that's where I saw firsthand the power of, again, that intersection of human creativity amplified by artificial intelligence. We created experiences for physicians so they could better identify orphan diseases through probability of an AI system. We created some voice assistants where that would help with dosing regimens and all the complexities around that. And then most recently helped create a product where you could measure arterial fibrillation simply by putting the finger on your camera of your phone. And now with AI, you can measure broad population kind of predictors in that scenario. So I think those are some interesting examples of how AI is helping in the health space. Most recently, back to my creative background, I've been familiar with working on kind of deadlines and working on some pretty major campaigns, but nothing prepared me for that moment of staring at the blank page and having the publisher ask for the next chapter of the book. And that's where I had this moment of realization. I don't only want to write a book about AI, but actually leverage AI to assist in writing the book. So that's where it not only had a technical and an informative capabilities and contribution to the book, but it also gave me an emotional kind of contribution in the sense that I felt I had someone at my back or something at my back throughout the process. So the book is kind of co-authored by AI, where we talk back and forth throughout the book. And, I think that's an example, a metaphor for how going forward AI can amplify our human abilities.
So in other words, panic helped you to birth.
Exactly. Yeah. Some of the best ideas come out of panic. Right?
I think that's fantastic. Okay, so now you kind of alluded it to a little bit, but let's try to get a little bit more specific. And when we start talking about, yes, you wrote the book. Yes, you're working with Adobe and the Creative Cloud and the partnering aspects of that. You have a lot of things going on. You have the kids.
Yes.
Wife. But when you start looking at one of your goals, what would one of your goals be?
I think it's to give people the ability to leverage their human creativity. I think it is the gift we all have inside of us. And now with technologies, we can be up-leveled. And really, I think it's incumbent, and we have the opportunity to create a better world by leveraging innovation, creativity, and technology.
Well, and the Fast Leader Legion wishes you the very best. Now, before we move on, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. An Even Better Place to Work is an easy-to-use solution that gives you a continuous diagnostic on employee engagement along with integrated activities that will improve employee engagement and leadership skills in everyone. Using this award-winning solution is guaranteed to create motivated, productive, and loyal employees who have great work relationships with their colleagues and your customers. To learn more about An Even Better Place to Work, visit beyondmorale.com/better. All right, here we go, Fast Leader Legion. It's time for the Hump Day Hoedown. Okay, Chris, the Hump Day Hoedown is a part of our show where you give us good insights fast. So I'm going to ask you several questions. And your job is to give us fast and robust responses so that we can all move onward and upward faster. Chris Duffey, are you ready to hoedown?
Let's do it.
All right. So what do you think is holding you back from being an even better leader today?
I think it's imagination. We just be brave, be courageous, and go for it. We now have the technology to help achieve those goals.
What is the best leadership advice you have ever received?
I love this phrase, find a way or make a way.
As what is one of your secrets that you believe contributes to your success?
Finding technologies to achieve business goals.
And what is one of your tools that you believe helps you in business and life?
Without a doubt, artificial intelligence will be the power tool of our time.
Okay, Chris, what would be one book that you'd recommend to our, and it could be from any genre. Of course, we're going to put a link to Superhuman Innovation on your show notes page as well.
My next favorite one is Make It Stick. And I think that was a book that has stood out over time for me in terms of creating ideas that resonate and are relevant to the consumer.
And so the authors for that book, as far as Make It Stick or Made to Stick, because I know there's a couple different ones.
Yeah.
Dan Heath, is that the one you're talking about?
Exactly.
Yes, I love that book as well.
Yeah.
Okay, Fast Leader Legion, you can find links to that and other bonus material from today's show by going to fastleader.net/Chris Duffey. Okay, Chris, this is my last Hump Day Hoedown question. Imagine you were given the opportunity to take your knowledge and skills back to the age of 25. But you know what? You can't take it all. You can only take one. So what skill or piece of knowledge would you take back with you, and why?
I would say courage. Courage to innovate, courage to create ideas, courage to help make the world a better place.
Chris, it was an honor to spend time with you today. Can you please share with the Fast Leader Legion how they can connect with you?
Sure. I'm on chrisduffey.ai, or also can be found on Instagram at Superhuman Innovation.
Chris Duffey, thank you for sharing your knowledge and wisdom, and the Fast Leader Legion honors you and thanks you for helping us get over the hump. Thank you for joining me on the Fast Leader Show today. For recaps, links from every show, special offers, and access to download and subscribe, if you haven't already, head on over to fastleader.net so we can help you move onward and upward faster.